Brian, I've heard you call it like the tip of the spear. You find the thing that is going to get you into a casting director's mind. It's going to help build that relationship. And for anyone who says, oh, well, and we hear this all the time, actors pushing, they're like, yeah, I understand, that sounds great. Well, you know, actually, I think I tell like 2 or 3 stories really well. Like they always try to push and expand, right? And I go, okay, fine. You know what? Let's find the one that, and this is such great advice I heard, and people have heard me say this before, is you got to pay attention to story in your life, right? What books have you read 3 and 4 times that are all dog-eared on your shelf, and what songs make you cry, and what movies do you watch 1,000 times, and all that stuff? Because I promise there is some through line between those stories and the stories that move you, right? The stories that really, and the ones that move you are the ones you're going to want to tell. And so figure that out and lean into that, and then once you use that sort of tip of the spear to create these relationships, you will find that the stories that people want you to tell start expanding, you know, because what they say is like, oh, you know what? And I've had a casting director tell me, this isn't the kind of thing you usually do, but I thought of it. I read the script and I thought, you know what? What if we did like what if we brought the Blair thing to that? Wouldn't that be interesting, right? And now she's expanding, not saying I can do everything. It happens the more they get to know you.
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah, I would say that no one is like, oh, Blair did such a good job with that audition. And that's the only thing he ever can do, probably, because he's such a good actor. That's the only thing he can do.
Right.
He can only do that. Like the reaction is like, oh, Blair's so great because you brought that thing to the room. That's the only thing you can do. It's the opposite.
Right, exactly right.
And a prism. You brought him a prism, and now I see the rainbow. Is what I feel like.
Oh, nice.
And I think on some level, if you're an actor at a good place in your career, you know, maybe being typecast is not such a bad thing, right? Because if you're getting typecast, then they know who you are. They are thinking of you. They're bringing you in, and ideally, hopefully, you're booking work. I mean,
but you're working. If you're being typecast, you're working. So good job.
Exactly. The only time we're being typecast is a problem is if you're playing roles that you don't like. And there are some, and I've talked to some actors that are like, I look like a musical theater person, and I just don't like musical theater, and I don't want to be the musical theater stuff because I don't like that. I've talked to some actors like that, but the vast majority of you will be better off figuring out what your thing is, what's your lane, and then get in that lane and stay in that lane. Once you've got 10 scripts coming across your desk, then you can worry about typecast.
I don't want to belabor this point too much because I think we've made it, it's so important, but there's one thing that I have to mention just because it literally changed my career and it changed what I do in the room. This idea that we all have a unique voice, right? That we all have this thing that we can bring that no one else can. And when I go into a room, you know, I'm the guy who tried to get it right and, you know, please everybody. And so I'm trying to do what they want. And that's just awful for all those reasons. And when you go into the room to tell your story, to tell your version of their script, first of all, it's a lot more fun. It's more authentic because I'm telling something that means something to me. So now I have this little mantra a little bit if I get nervous or I'm waiting on the audition, I have to remind myself, yes, it's their script, but it's my story. And I can't get it wrong. It's my story. And my job is to go in and offer my story to them. Actually heard a great interview with a casting director who talked about that, who talked about like being on casting. It's amazing because all these actors come in and they offer you their heart and their soul. And it's so hard sometimes to go, oh my God, I love that, but I can't use it, which happens all the time. But that idea that you are there to offer your voice, your story to them. If they can't use it, okay, don't worry about it. It's not your fault. But the more authentic and real your story is, the more they're going to go, crap, I wish I could use that.
Yes.
When can I bring them back in? Let's find something else for them because that was awesome.
Yeah, and I think most actors don't realize this journey begins with, what did you submit to me for your headshot and your resume? Like that's actually where we are so ready to think about it in the audition room and not ready to think about how that story actually gets told from the moment that I'm in the right? And so to kind of bring CastingAbout back into this, when you're talking about using that tool, can you give few more examples of how an actor might use that tool? So let's say I've got all the information about who's casting what and what time and da-da. What do I then, I'm not trying to memorize that for an SAT test. What am I doing with that information?
In a nutshell, what you are trying to do is find the people in town who tell the same stories you do, right? Or who tell the same stories really well. Because I think casting directors are storytellers too, right? So they go on interviews, they say, I would cast your script this way. And the director producer goes, that's not really the story I want to tell. I'm going to hire the other person. And different casting directors get hired for different things. So now you have this running list of everything going on in town and who got hired to tell that story. And, you can click on a name and see the history of everything they've done in the last, 10 years or so. And so now, I get it. I get what kind of storyteller this person is. And you know what? I tell the same stories and I have now something to offer them. Because, let's face it, there are casting directors in town. I don't really have that much to offer them. They don't need me. There's people who can offer better things to them, right? So I want to find my list. I want to find my people. I want to find the people who need me the most.
Blair, you just said something that like blew my mind. So I want to make sure we underline it and I think you move by it really quickly, which is the beauty to be able to see the history of everything that they've cast. Because I think what we're trying to do is get, okay, so let me find out what that casting director's taste is like. And sometimes if you're using IMDb to do this, you're only looking at what they're casting right now. Usually you're not understanding the depth of it, or you're not really, I think that it's such a beautiful way to think of like, oh, they cast this kind of show because these casting directors are having to sell themselves too to producers and production houses and directors and all of that. And so these directors and producers are choosing them because they get the kind of stories that they're telling. So rather than saying like, how am I going to create my target list of casting directors? The way you're going to trade it is who has the flavor for the feeling or the favor, whatever that phrase is from the fever for the flavor, right? Who's got the fever for the Blair flavor.
That's right. And especially I think as you're coming up in your career, the associates, and that's one thing that I'm very proud of our researchers. We track all the assistants and associates too. IMDb is great for big picture, but it's it's doing casting company and some casting directors, but the associates and the assistants who are building their own career and moving up. And if you're tracking an associate who's like working for 2 different companies or 3, and every project they do is right for you, and then all of a sudden that associate jumps to the casting director column because they got promoted. If you're not reaching out, with a congrats on the promotion, and by the way, I saw you did this and that, and I read for you 6 months ago, and now we should meet, all that stuff that happens. Tracking those relationships, but for the specific people who are telling the same stories as you. I think that's so important. I've even used that. I mean, yes, it's important to use that to maybe try and build relationships and reach out and follow them on social media and see who they are as a person. And I'll plug the site for a minute. One thing I'm proud of is our researchers also track all of the social media. Well, we do Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and personal websites if they have them. So for all the casting directors,
the price of admission. That's worth the price of admission. We're done.
I think it's amazing.
There you go. Yeah.
And not so you can necessarily reach out on Instagram and say, hey, stranger, hire me. That's not, please don't do that. It is for you to follow them. Who are they as a person? Who are they as a storyteller? What are they getting involved in? And when all of a sudden somebody you're following on Twitter says, oh my God, we lost our reader for this afternoon, help Twitter. Can anyone read for me? Or when somebody says, hey, I'm excited, I'm an associate, but I'm excited, I just picked up my own play, I'm doing a play reading, and you just finished doing that play at some other theater, and you can reach out and say, I know that role. I mean, whatever it is, right? You follow them to get to know them as people first, to build these relationships so that you are ready when the time comes. And places I've used it, I've gotten an audition with somebody that I don't know all that well, right? My manager gets me an audition, great, and through her relationships. And let's say it's a show, let's say it's a pilot, or it's a show that I'm not familiar with. Well, I know it's comedy, but what's the tone? Are we The Office here? Are we big wacky? Are we subdued? Are we subtle? What's the tone? Well, I can go look at everything the casting director has cast in the last 10 years and go, I know that tone, I know that one, I know that one, I know that one. Okay, there's a common theme here. This casting director likes to work in this space, so let's lean in that direction. Maybe this one's different, but you can't go wrong. If you're familiar with their work and you go in delivering your story in that space, you can't go wrong. I mean, maybe they go, that was great, let's tweak it, let's work, but okay, great, let's do that. Yeah. But now I know their work as well as them, and I am better equipped to offer them something they can use.
And we're a fan of actors being chatty in the room, and especially in the virtual space, that doesn't really even happen at all anymore. But I don't think casting directors really enjoy if you're just hanging in there, like, do your thing and leave is a better way to go. Be memorable when you're acting, not after you're acting. But the more you know about the casting director, sometimes there is the opportunity for small talk if the casting director kind of initiates it, something or other. And I think it's nice to know what they've done. If you can't think, if you're not a small person and you can't think what to talk about, being able to say, oh my gosh, I noticed that you cast this other show and I just recently saw it. I thought it was really great. Having something that you know about them in your bag, not that you're going to bring it out, but maybe it comes up. So there are lots of things that research can help you to do, to be more knowledgeable. But as Blair said, for sure, the overall goal is of all the casting directors that I might get to know, let me start with the ones that are most right in my target, the ones that they tell the same stories that I tell. We need each other, and so let me get into their onto their radar and start building a relationship, which is going to take time, but let me start doing that.
And one of the things that you just said, I'll give you a check, and what's is the karma piece of this is like, if I'm calling you in, I've done my research on whether or not I think you're right for one of my 36 spots today. I've watched your reel, I've looked at your pictures, and I know who your reps are. And I've decided I have a hope for this guy to book this job. So I've done all my research, and I feel like our own karma exchanges, I can at least open up CastingAbout and learn a little bit about this office and who these people are to give them the same like heartfelt due diligence of knowing something about them, right? And one of the things that I think I feel really empowered that you've just said, Blair, today is every audition anyone gets, we 100% want to do the research that I just described, I think. But then also, if you're doing this research of like, I think the show is right for me, let me go kind of look and see what the journey is of the show and who's been casting, and then you kind of get into the, surprisingly, I think, artistic conversation around what a casting office is doing to create that world, which I think our actors don't go to that first. We go to like, it's an exchange, it can be a little transactional. And then suddenly if you do decide to reach out to someone, not only do you have like something to talk about, which I think can sometimes be lame, because if it feels inauthentic, it'll be inauthentic. Like I saw you cast that, great job, like thumbs down, that's not good enough, like do better, right? So but you have seen a history, and since from a very grounded non-fan place, you can say, I've noticed in the history of what you've been casting that it feels like the worlds that I one day hope that I will be casted in. And I just wanted to compliment like that I know that there's a day we'll be connected because this is a small business, but these three things stood out to me, and I'm with these reps, I'll see you soon, whenever it happens, it happens. Like some different version of I've done my, not to show, because here's the difference, I think. Showing you did your homework is different than doing your homework and then coming from an authentic point of view.
Showing you did your homework is ultimately a thing you're doing for yourself because you want to show them that you're smart and you did your homework. And this is such a perfect segue into something that Brian has said, and I've learned a lot. I think it's great, is that people look at marketing backwards, right? And they look at it because they think of it, so well, how do I connect with somebody so they can do something for me, right? And that's why people get all like wiggy, like, oh, I hate networking because it feels blah, 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 because they're out looking for like, hey, stranger, do something for me. And I think philosophically, I think karmically, I think just as a way to live the life, any life, you flip that on its head. And what if it was, what can I do for you, right? I love the idea that acting, storytelling, why not come at it from being a place of service? How can I serve this story and you as a storyteller? And Brian has talked about this so much as really the core of marketing. It's not, hey, me. It's no, what can I offer here? Let's build a connection. And so, going in saying, well, hey, casting director, I know everything you've ever done. Aren't I cool? Is for you. But if you go in, if you're in New York and you go in to read for some TV show and the associate is casting a off Broadway play, and you can say, hey, by the way, I saw you're doing your own gig. You're casting this play. I did that play in college. It is phenomenal. I love it. I wish you well, but man, if there's any way I could help you with that, I would love to work together. you are saying I want to read for that job, but it's not skeezy. It's you saying, one of my all-time favorite stories in the world is my buddy who went in to read for a TV show and said to the associate, "Hey, I saw you got your own gig as lead casting director on this low-budget film." And she said, "Yes, it's my first gig. I'm so excited." And now they're talking peer to peer, right? And she said, "Yeah." And he goes, "And I saw that you're shooting in Pittsburgh," because we have notes on all the shows in CastingAbout, and it said shooting in Pittsburgh. So he said, "I saw you shooting in Pittsburgh, and I grew up there, and it's a great town. And if you need local hires, and he booked the gig. He spent 3 weeks at home with his parents, and living in his parents' house again, but helping her tell the story. And again, that's just knowing how you can help, how you can serve, and is getting to know fellow storytellers. And it is different. It's a different thing than how can I impress so that people do things for me.
I think this is a huge deal, and I'm going to try not to get on my soapbox and monopolize the entire rest of this conversation, but this is a huge deal for me. I think that so many actors start from a really selfish place. Me, look at me, watch my stuff. Why can't I get any opportunities? Me, whatever. I think you are much better served in this business by starting from, as Blair said, a place of service. Well, how can I serve this industry? How can I tell stories? How can I help your story be a better story? What can I bring that, what are of my unique skills? What can I do that makes your day? What can I do that makes you feel like today I love my job? And you think about that stuff. You think about the people in your lives who make you feel good. They do that because they care about you as a person, individual. They care about like what matters to you. And if all you do when you meet a casting director is go me, please hire me, please look at my headshot, please, hire me for this role. If that's all you do, I kind of don't think the casting director is going to be like, seriously, stop, just get away from me. It's why casting directors never leave their houses, because they get accosted from people going me, and like, who wants that, right? The few actors who come to them and say, I care about you as a person, and how can I help you? What can I do to professionally? What can I do to make you look good in front of your boss? If you think of your career from that standpoint, what can I do to make everybody around me better? Mm-hmm. You're gonna have so much more success, and also just be more satisfied. It's a huge deal. So stepping off the sandbox. Sorry.
Brian, I think it's a really beautiful sandbox, because I think undergirding it, the foundation of that is, we are equal. I have something to offer. Mm-hmm. You have something to offer. We are both mm-hmm. worthy. I belong in this business and you belong in this business. All the chatter around like, should I even be doing this with my life? And I wish I wasn't waiting tables so much, or I wish I wasn't working so hard. Like, all that has to kind of dissolve and say, we're both trying to make art here. And we both, I think there's a piece that has to be brought into this, which is, we all know that you can't always cast me. We all know that it's not always up to you. So I'm saying, I'd love to toss my hat in the ring when it's time for you to consider, right? Which is very different than that desperate kind of energy that no one likes. The actor doesn't like. No one likes that energy. And that's why we pull away from it. Or the opposite of that, which is the over schmooze or the over push, which is also a puffed up version of yourself, which is inauthentic, right? And I think and I would say, like, if that's the one thing anyone takes away from this conversation, is that like both of these tools are built to, I believe, allow you to be more yourself, not less yourself. To show
I like that.
up more, to really share more of your story, to connect with the right people. Because I think an actor hears this and they're like, I need to have 1 million credits because that's the answer. I need to reach out to every single casting director because that's the answer. Instead of, I need to let the ones that, like you said, Blair, I loved you said, there's some people who just like, I'm not for them. Like, their shows are not the ones that I'll be cast on. Like, maybe in a weird way, but not usually. Like, let them go. Like,
you're absolutely right. There's this thing that is like, I'm going to buy a whole bunch of headshots back in the day, right? I'm going to buy a whole bunch of headshots, and I'm going to slap a bunch of mailing labels on them. I'm going to fire those out. That's what marketing is. And I'm sorry, that is junk mail. No one likes it. The thing that you do is start with however much time you have. How much time do you have in your day? Maybe that is 5 casting directors. Maybe that is 20 casting directors. If it's more than 20 casting directors, start with that many. Just like get to the others later. but if you've got time in your day for 5 casting directors, build a relationship with those 5 casting directors, and don't worry about the rest of them. If an opportunity comes out of left field, awesome, then go play, have fun, whatever. But these are my 5, and or my 20 or my 10 or whatever you have time for in the way your life is, and what's going on. But one connection to a casting director is not a relationship. It might take, in marketing, they talk about the rule of 7. It's this idea that it takes 7 impressions of a brand before people are ready to make a purchase decision, right? That's why billboards exist. It's not that you're supposed to stop your car right there, get out of your car and go buy the thing.
I love that image, though.
I do. I gotta get a Coke right now. I need to get a Coke.
I must have a Coke immediately. The idea behind marketing is, oh, there's that guy. Oh, there's that guy again. Oh, there's that guy again. That looks really cool. Like, eventually casting directors start to get comfortable with you. It does not happen on the first instance, on the first try, whatever. And if you're new in a town or an area, or if you're a new actor just getting into this stuff, that casting director has relationships that they have already been building over 5, 10, 15 years with other actors. Start where you start. Give it the time of authentic, helpful interactions. So you go to an audition, you do your thing, you walk away. Your goal is to be you, as good as you can be, to be the best you that you can be in that audition. Your goal is not to book the job. If that happens, great. But in an audition, your goal is to be amazing, to bring that unique essence and to bring that into the room, to show them what you can do.
Your job is to walk in and offer your story, your version of their script, because it's unique. And the more authentic it is to you, the more attractive it's going to be. And you all realize that maybe they can't use it because, the star has something in his contract where the co-star has to be under a certain height or something, whatever, all that, or you look like the producer's ex-husband. So you can't control that stuff. So you go in and you deliver your story authentically. And within this mindset, your auditions now are not about necessarily getting the job. They're about marketing. They're about furthering your relationship. So, hey, get to know me more as a storyteller, and I get to know you more as a storyteller, and I'm a pro and you're a pro, and I'm not going anywhere. We'll work together down the road at some point. I know we will. It's a different mindset, and ultimately so much more fun in the room.
It's so freeing. And
I always think about realtors because I get a postcard from a realtor or like a stamp or like a magnet and I get postcards all the time. I ain't shopping for a house right now. Thank you. The housing market is insane. So but they're sending it anyway. They're putting in the due diligence. I'm not saying we should be blanketing to people we don't know, but there's this belief that there'll be a day when it's time for us to be booking you on a job. And and I think that and the actor, I don't paint the picture of like reaching out to strangers, but I think that like what you just said, it's very important that we hold on to this belief of it might not be today, but it'll be tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow. Like I'm putting in, I would say like you're putting money in the bank and you're going to take the interest later.
What you're saying is all actors need the sign on the back of the bench with the smiling picture. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, which is Actors Access, bringing it. There you go.
I love the idea that that if your goal is to be the best you can be, if your goal is like you are now competing against yourself, right? And so you walk into the room on an audition and everybody looks exactly like you, and you're like, what in the world? Or worse yet, you walk in and everybody else looks the same except you. And you're like, why am I here? None of that matters anymore, right? You cannot control what anybody else does. You cannot control what decisions the casting director, the producer makes. All you can do is make the best start that you can make to so understand what tools you bring into the room basically means that now your competition is at the end of an audition, you can walk away and say, did I do what I set out to do? Yeah. And it is so much easier to have, I don't know, after auditions, I don't sing, and after auditions, I hate myself. I don't know if anybody else experiences that because all I can think about is all the stuff that I did wrong. But you are now in a position where you can say, did I do the stuff that I wanted to do? I don't care what anybody else did. That's all outside of my control. I go in with a plan, and did I achieve that plan? In which case, hold your head high.
Right. Yeah. And I also think if you didn't feel like you did as well as you can, I always say you get 20 minutes to beat yourself up. And then after that, you need to be in the, what will I do different next time? What can I help?
Yeah.
So if you got 20 minutes of feeling disappointed in yourself, I feel like, and then you got to just let it go. So I want to make this our last point because it's such a big one right now, which is because so many of us are now, I mean, we were already moving into the world of submit self-tapes. We're not going into offices as much. And now past 2020 happened. And so thanks 2020, it's even happening more. And I always say like this business is becoming more evidence-based. So if you say that you're funny, I better see a clip of you doing funny. If I say you're this kind of funny, I better see a clip of you doing this kind of funny, right? In the backstage pass that you have to see what's going on in Actors Ask Us and Casting About, is there anything you're noticing there or trend that you're noticing there that you think the listeners could really benefit from learning or knowing?
There a couple things come to mind. First of all, I love what you said about, if you better be this kind of funny or whatever. And I think that goes back to that being inauthentic, saying, showing up saying, hey, I saw you got cast, you picked up a new thing. Congratulations. If it's not authentic, it's not real. So, if you're showing clips of you telling stories that really connect with you, that's the authentic thing that you want. And that speaks to everything we've been talking about. So, updating your profile and keeping that sort of streamlined to represent who you are, incredibly important, especially always, but now, because I think casting directors, to answer your question, I think casting directors now are relying on those connections and those relationships, maybe more than ever before, because of the distance, right? So if I am trying to get to know you over in an EcoCast self-tape or an EcoCast live audition or whatever, and we have this thing here. Well, I can see what you do on the screen, but I also want to try and get to know you more. So what is your profile? What are your demo clips? And does the thing I'm seeing on the screen match the storyteller I see in all the demo clips? Because I need to rely on that now as a casting director, because I don't have you in the office to get to talk to you one-on-one. So, realizing who you are as a storyteller, making sure your resume, your pictures, your demo clips speak to that. Being that kind of storyteller, bringing your most authentic story to the EcoCast, to the online audition, so that they all match up, I think is more important than ever before, because we need to build that connection, that relationship with a little bit more distance like this, over the screen. And we've had casting directors, Jason Kennedy, who does the NCISs, he said this great thing. He was doing a thing, people were asking questions online about, oh my God, my home studio and the sound and the light and the blah, blah, and he's like, yes, if we can make sure we can hear you and see you, please, but everybody relax. Everybody relax. Because if I can hear you and see you, I want to see your story. So if I can hear your story and I can see your story, it's fine. All those things we hear about, that don't have the Star Wars sheets hanging behind you, that is a distraction, and don't have your cat running through, and don't, all those tips we hear. When those are a problem, are when your story is not captivating them. It's when they have time to be distracted by your background, by your bad sound, by your not perfect lighting. But, every casting director will also tell you that they've gotten self-tapes and online auditions with somebody that it's not quite right. There's too much stuff, but the story happened and they forgot all about it because they were drawn into the story, right? So,
Yeah.
So yes, do your home studio, be a pro, right? Of course. Right. But think story, think, because this connection is more important than ever before. I think that answers your question. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And another way to say that, which may help for some people, is that, technology is sort of changing the way the industry is working a little bit. And that sometimes freaks people out. But what might be comforting is, and this is what Blair was just saying, the essence of it is still exactly the same, which is be an actor. When you have the opportunity to be on camera in a Zoom audition or in an EcoCast live audition or whatever, be an actor. Do the things. Something changed, but the essential core is still the same. Tell a really great story, and sure, think about your background and think about your lighting and think about the camera and all that stuff, but don't agonize over that. Be a great actor.
Yeah,
I had a callback once, EcoCast live callback, where I was meeting the producer director, live like this. And because it was supposed to be in a room, it was very specific. I wanted to see you in a certain room. I didn't do a backdrop. I was in a room, and I asked outright, I said, hey, so it felt like we should be in a room. So I didn't use the backdrop. I hope that's okay. and which is, I think, real and honest, right? And she goes, oh, I hate backdrops. They're cold and stale, and I hate them, and I want to get to know you.
Right.
And
so actors all around the country ripping down.
I got kids, I got kids. This is me, So and quite frankly, if I'm up for a dad role, I don't care if you see that. That's pretty cool. So, there's a way to be a pro about this, but I think it's when you lean back into story and telling your story, a lot of those question marks go away. And I think that is so important right now. Is the way we build connections in this industry is through story, because that's what we're doing. So when you can build that connection, you are going to find you have more of a relationship more quickly than you thought you did.
Great.
Can I just build on that for a second, or expand on that a little bit? Remember that casting directors are getting used to this new technology too. And so they're going to find out what their preferences are. They're going to figure out what works for them. Different casting directors are going to like the backdrop, not backdrop, want for things and so on. One of the things that's worth noting here is that casting directors have started putting notes into EcoCast audition invitations. So when you get your invitation, you're starting to see the casting director tell you, please do this, etc. Please, on behalf of the casting community and all of us here at Breakdown Services, read the notes
and do what it says.
Do what they tell you to do.
Well, you know what? I'll just tell you, a lot of times an actor will say, they said in the notes to do X, Y, Z, and usually the actor's reaction is, why are they asking me to do some weird thing? And what you just said, Brian, that I'm taking away from that is, they're learning their own taste around what they like and don't like. And that's their way of saying, this is what works for our tape. So if you want your tape to be seen and be seen the way that they like it, don't think this is about them berating you or telling you you're doing it wrong, but like, this is what's working for the tapes in their office. And that's their way of helping you.
Not just their office, but the producers, their boss's office, the producer's office, because they're actually advocating for you. And what they're saying is, please do this because I can sell you better to the producer. This is what they want.
Yes.
And I'm amazed at how many casting directors are complaining. They're like asking breakdowns, can you put it in bold? Can you put it in red and bold? Because actors are not following the instructions.
Whoa, I think that's the price of admission today. Another price of admission moment. Like that is a big, because I think because the truth is, and you talked about this earlier, setting up your self-tape thing is its own rigmarole of dramatiques and spending money and blah, 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 and does it look good? And I have to be on camera and there's a computer and blah, 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 who's my reader and COVID and blah, 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 right? And then to have the cast say, and also, can you do it like this? Usually feels like, do you know how much I've already done to do this the way I do it now? Thank you very much. Yeah. So I think we have to really hear that with the spirit that is intended, which is, I'm here to help. This is completely to help you. Almost like they're not going to say, sorry, this is annoying, but that's a little bit with just like, they don't want to be, they're not trying to be annoying. They're actually trying to only be on your side, which I think is so important. So I want to just underline the biggest takeaway that I had from today, which is the surprise of all surprise of everyone. Actors Access and Casting About is rooted in storytelling, which is not what anyone would ever have thought as we think about this. That it is about storytelling and true human connection. We said it so many times today. So obviously we're not saying it just because we like the sound of our own voice. We're saying it because this is what we really believe unlocks these two incredible tools for us. Brian, I just want to thank you. And Blair, I want to thank you so much for this really awesome conversation. Like I have so many ideas brewing inside of here. I need to go write them all down after this. Is there anything you want to leave anybody with today? And can you also tell people if they want to follow you and see what you're doing, where they can do that?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll end up repeating ourselves here. I hope not. So Blair, I'll take the first thing, which is just that, it's been weird these last 18 months and it continues to be weird. We were talking earlier today with our staff about how we have to kind of step away from the news cycle a little bit because some of this stuff is just, so one of the things I've been saying throughout the pandemic is it is my belief that the world needs artists and storytellers now more than they ever have. And so I, as the non-actor in the room, but still an artist, I want to celebrate all of you people that are out there telling stories, that are out there interpreting the way the world is right now. I think you are more important now than you ever were. I know it's hard, but don't give up because we need you.
Oh, I need you too, Brian.
Yeah.
And I do. I concur. I think it's a wonderful thought, and I'm so proud to be part of a community that does that. I mean, I think it's fantastic. And I tend to be an optimist and fight very hard to remain an optimist sometimes at time and in this world. But one of the glass half full ways to look at the last year and a half, I think is that it's funny, we spend more time at home alone, but yet in a way there are connections that have been made, immediate connections that I don't know happened when you had to drive half an hour through traffic and you went into the room and got home and fought traffic and was annoyed. I mean, how cool is that things are more intimate, we see each other's homes now, and that's okay. And we share, and I think the amount of information out there and the opportunities, and this is my way of thanking you, Brian, for what you do. Everything you do, the information you put out, your newsletter, this podcast. I've watched episodes. It was great seeing you with Elaine Eldaffer recently, by the way. She and I worked together in the same theater company 30 years ago in New York. It's just fantastic to see her. We shared an office. We had a job to try and book guest speakers to come into this acting school and work together forever. I need to reach out to her. It was so great to see her, and your conversation was wonderful with her. And so I think, thank you for what you do. And I think the opportunity that actors have now to sit at home and to have these conversations, my soapbox is that, I don't believe there's, the 7 magic things that get you a career. I think it's taking it all in and figuring out who you are as a storyteller and what your voice is, and then offering back that to the community, and your path will emerge through that. But the more information you have about storytellers and artists and the inspiration you can glean from, events, hopefully like this, hopefully this inspired some people, is that I think that's an amazing thing. That's a nice thing to come out of this. So hopefully people keep doing that, and I, will continue to watch, listen to the stuff you do. So thank you, and thank you for having us. I feel bad because sometimes Brian and I get so excited, we just ramble on and chew up all the time. It's been however long it's been. I feel like we can keep going, and I hope we didn't step all over you. I just get very excited.
It's been I'm sure that all the listeners here are pretty excited to go take these 2 tools really seriously and to give them such a more heartfelt and wholehearted approach. And I think that's the gift that you gave everyone today. And I'm just so grateful to you. Now, if anybody wants to follow you on social media, is that things you guys do? Is there a place for them to do that?
Yes. CastingAbout has a pretty active Twitter account. And Facebook as well, easy to find by looking at CastingAbout. There's actually a page in Facebook for both LA and New York.
Great.
And we would love to hear from folks. If they have questions and ideas and comments. I'm at Blair Hickey LA, as in Los Angeles, my own personal Twitter account. Love to hear from other actors too. And we'd like to hear stories too about how people are using CastingAbout.
Or old-fashioned email.
Yes.
Brian at castingabout.com. I'm Brian, although some of you can, I imagine you probably can read it on the screen. I'm not sure if that'll come through, but Brian at castingabout.com, and Blair is BLIR at castingabout.com. Let us know what you loved about what we talked about, what you hated what we talked about, how you like the cartoon villain beard. I'm happy to hear it.
Sure, especially for those of you who, if you're a listener here, if you want to go check this out and see what we really look like in this conversation, there's a lot of smiles over here. This is on YouTube, so you can see our backstage conversation about everything we talked about today. Sweet. Thank you guys so much for today. We will link to everything you talked about in the show notes for those of you who are listening. If you want to make sure you can get on following these 2 people, their email addresses, and where to find CastingAbout and Actors Access. So I'm just so grateful to the 2 of you today for giving us this time and for your perspective on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate it.